Welcome to Secret America, where the glamour fades and the truth begins. Subscribe now and don't miss a single story. Gregory Peck looked like the picture of calm in To Kill a Mockingbird, but behind that smooth composure he carried a growing frustration with Hollywood's wild energy. Even early on, he couldn't stand how messy film sets could get, and he hated how some actors treated the job like a circus. One time, an actor pulled up with a suitcase stuffed with alcohol and 3 snakes, making Peck snap, "I can't work in a circus like this." Another day, someone brought a real gun to test realism. And when a stray bullet almost damaged the assistant director's hearing, Peck stormed off shouting, "I signed a contract to make movies, not to fight in a war." That calm gentleman was pushed to the edge, and the one who pushed him there the hardest was Marlon Brando. Brando pulled up to the Missouri Breaks set like he was starring in his own universe. Producers told Peck that Brando had changed, that he was finally disciplined. But the moment they landed in Montana, Peck realized he'd been played. Brando brought liquor, snakes, and even a tiny piano he claimed helped him transfer emotional energy. And every morning he tapped random notes while mumbling, "Today I'm going to act in the color blue." Peck could only stare in disbelief. While Peck showed up at 7 a.m. sharp, script in hand and ready to work, Brando wandered in around 11:30 a.m. like time didn't apply to him. The clash was instant, order versus chaos, structure versus pure instinct. And that tension lit up the whole set. Then came the moment that sent Peck over the edge. Brando walked in wearing a wool beanie pulled low and holding a live pigeon like it was part of the cast. In front of everyone he declared, "It will act with me today. I want the audience to feel the friendship between man and a free spirit." The crew froze, confused and stunned by his bold move. When the scene rolled, Brando didn't deliver his lines. Not one. Instead, he lifted the pigeon and let it fly across the set, staring off like he was in a different world. Peck stood there holding his script, completely thrown off while everyone watched in shock at the chaos unfolding right in front of them. Gregory Peck hit his limit when Brando started whispering his lines so quietly the mic couldn't catch a thing. Peck watched the mess unfold and finally cracked, turning to Arthur Penn with shaken nerves. "I need to see a psychiatrist." Penn dragged Brando aside, barely holding back his anger, saying, "Marlon, this is a movie, not an exorcism. Gregory can't keep up with your kind of acting." Brando just lit a cigarette and whispered, "Then let him try to feel it," making Peck burn inside. That night at the hotel bar they sat only a few tables apart, yet the distance felt like another world. Brando laughed loud with his crew, spilling wine, while Peck stared into his whiskey, cold and silent. The tension was thick enough to choke. Years later, Brando called him a statue of victory, handsome, cold, and solace. And when Brando passed, Peck didn't hide how he felt. When asked if he regretted anything, he paused, steady and sharp, before saying, "No, he deserved it." Peck thought the storm was over, until he met Frank Sinatra, the one star wild enough to push him past the edge again. On Captain Newman, MD, Sinatra showed up whenever he wanted, sometimes smelling like last night, while Peck arrived at 6 in the morning ready to work. The crew was terrified to challenge Sinatra. He was a global icon, completely untouchable. Peck finally warned the director, "If he's not sober, I'm quitting this film." Miller begged him back, whispering, "Greg, this is Sinatra, don't push him. You don't want to die over this." Sinatra treated acting like a casual break from fame, and during a serious scene he even whistled and spat on the floor just to throw Peck off. When Peck froze and glared at him, Sinatra smirked, "Sorry, St. Gregory." When an assistant mentioned Peck looked like a priest, Sinatra raised his glass and mocked, "A priest? No, he's St. Gregory, the most boring saint in Hollywood. The real explosion came in their final scene together when all that silent tension finally blew up. Sinatra walked onto set 3 hours late, smelling like straight whiskey, acting like the world revolved around him. When the director told him to focus, Sinatra snapped, "I don't need this I've sung at Caesar's Palace. I know what emotion is." Peck calmly placed the script in front of him and said, "This isn't a nightclub, Frank. We are making a movie." That hit hard. Sinatra glared, flashed a grin, then fired back, "Then go make the movie yourself." The whole set froze as the two legends stared each other down, one built on discipline, the other fueled by ego. Peck finished the film, but he never looked Sinatra in the eyes again. He even avoided press events if Sinatra showed up. The irony? Critics loved the tension, saying, "Peck brings control, Sinatra brings chaos." Yet Peck later summed it up coldly. Frank was talented but absolutely unbearable. When asked if he'd work with Sinatra again, Peck didn't hesitate. "I'd rather act with an empty chair. At least it won't spit in people's faces." But Sinatra was only the warm-up. Soon came Richard Burton, the man Peck would later call the most terrible experience of my life. Their first meeting was at a Beverly Hills party where Burton stormed in with a scotch, voice booming like he was on a stage. When introduced to Peck, he laughed drunkenly and shouted, "Gregory Peck isn't an actor. He's a human rights speech wrapped in an expensive suit." Burton mocked him everywhere, parties, interviews, any room he walked into. He called him St. Gregory and joked, "Peck acts as if he's delivering a speech at the United Nations." But in 1965, producers tried to pair them in a film. The script hit Peck's hands first, and he shut it down instantly. After just a few pages, Peck tossed it aside and said, "I can work with anyone except an arrogant fool like him." Within days, the entire project died. Peck's spotless reputation ended the deal, leaving Burton furious and humiliated. Richard Burton later admitted in a British interview that his hatred for Gregory Peck wasn't personal. It was symbolic. To Burton, Peck represented everything he could never be. He sneered, calling Peck's reputation the greatest lie Hollywood ever agreed to believe. Burton lived messy and wild, drinking heavy, diving into scandals, losing control. To him, that was real life. Peck, steady and composed, felt like an insult to his chaos. Burton even said, "Every time I see his face, I want to vomit. He's my conscience. He proves that a man can live without madness, without alcohol, without sin, and that drives me insane." When Burton died in 1984, that quote resurfaced everywhere, exposing the raw bitterness he carried. When a reporter asked Peck for a comment, he simply said, "A man like Burton doesn't need me to say anything more." If Sinatra tested Peck's patience and Burton bruised his pride, the next clash hit deeper. John Wayne. The two men represented opposite halves of America, and they despised each other. Wayne backed the Vietnam War and called Peck soft. Peck fought for civil rights and saw Wayne as reckless aggression in human form. Their tension erupted at a Hollywood party in 1971. Wayne, wearing a leather shirt, raised his glass and growled, "If America were full of men like Gregory Peck, we'd have lost before the first shot was fired." Peck stood up calmly and answered, "And if America were full of men like you, we'd never know what peace is." The whole room froze as the feud went public. From then on, they avoided each other at every event. When the American Film Institute invited both for a panel on heroes in American cinema, Peck refused, saying, "I don't want to share fame with him." But fate wasn't done stirring the pot. In 1970, Universal Studios proposed Rooster Cogburn, pairing them as co-stars. The deal was nearly done until Wayne saw Peck's name, slammed the script and yelled, "I won't act with that America hater." Peck fired back just as cold. Two giants, two visions, and a divide too deep to fix. Gregory Peck finally looked the director dead in the eye and said, "I'd rather die." His feud with John Wayne had reached a point where neither man could back down. Over the years, their beliefs only split further apart. Wayne moved deeper into hard-right politics, while Peck spoke in Congress, pushing for peace and civil rights. Their Cold War lasted decades. Whenever they crossed paths at the Academy Awards, Wayne turned his head away, and Peck calmly straightened his tie and walked past without a glance. In Wayne's final years, when a reporter asked if Peck planned to visit, he answered, "I pray for his soul, but I still can't bear to look at his face." When Wayne died in 1979, tributes filled Hollywood, but Peck stayed home, sending only 2 words to the family: "My condolences." But the next man to push Peck wasn't driven by ego or politics. It was pure chaos. Orson Welles, the genius tornado who talked non-stop and turned every set into his personal playground, nearly broke Peck's legendary composure. On Moby Dick, Peck arrived prepared as Captain Ahab, but Welles strolled in hours late, wrapped in cigarette smoke and the smell of wine. When director John Huston scolded him, Welles just smirked, threw an arm around Peck and joked, "Come on, boys, let's not be so serious." Peck brushed him off, already reaching his limit. Welles began rewriting dialogue, challenging camera shots, and correcting the director right in front of the crew. During Ahab's prayer scene, Welles muttered, "Ahab is crazy because of God," like he was unraveling on the spot. Later, during the shipboard sermon, he ignored the script completely, delivering a wild, booming monologue no one recognized. Peck watched from just off camera as Welles acted like a man possessed, and Hollywood had never seen Gregory Peck pushed that far. When Huston finally yelled "cut," Welles kept going like the scene was still alive. He turned straight at Peck and said, "You see that? That's madness. You'll never understand, Gregory. You don't understand anything." Peck froze, jaw locked tight, every muscle burning with anger. For a split second, he thought, "God forgive me for not punching him." Welles didn't care. He tilted his head back with that wild grin and muttered, "He doesn't know what madness is. What a pitiful little man." From that moment on, Peck stayed far away from him. Welles bragged for years that he saved the whole movie, but Peck never forgot how unhinged he'd been. Later, in an interview, Peck said coldly, he was like a man who'd fallen from the heavens. Decades later, Welles retold the story laughing, saying, "Gregory Peck's a good man, but he lacks spice. I only meant to shake him up a little." After Moby Dick, Peck avoided actors with raging egos or chaotic tempers. He chased roles rooted in purpose and discipline, knowing now that genius and integrity don't always share the same room. But the man who rattled him the most never yelled, never insulted him. He didn't have to. His presence alone made Peck feel overshadowed. That man was Kirk Douglas, driven by an almost desperate need to outshine him. For nearly 20 years, they clashed quietly, smiling in public while trading venom in private. By the late 40s, Peck was already Hollywood's image of virtue. Douglas, fresh off champion, hated that clean reputation. He often sneered, "Gregory just stands there and lets his morality do the acting." Douglas never missed a chance to jab him. When asked to compare them, he smirked, "Gregory Peck is as stiff as a board, and that's why I'll always be better." The quote spread fast and lit their rivalry on fire. It peaked in 1963 when Peck won the Oscar for To Kill a Mockingbird, forever tying him to Atticus Finch. As the crowd stood cheering, Douglas sat in the back with a drink and muttered loud enough to be heard, If he were really Atticus Finch, Hollywood wouldn't be drowning in hypocrisy. Peck heard him, turned toward Douglas with a distant stare, and stayed silent, the calmest answer he could give. When a journalist later asked Gregory Peck about Kirk Douglas's sharp comment, he just shrugged and said, "He just loves to put on a show." Douglas kept chasing fierce, explosive roles, Paths of Glory, Spartacus, the kind of films that roared with defiance. Peck stayed the steady force of Hollywood's conscience, calm and controlled. Two powerful men, two different worlds, both brilliant and both quietly tormented by the reflection they saw in each other. Over the years, that rivalry started eating away at Douglas. It made him tougher, angrier, always trying to prove something no one ever demanded. He became everything Peck wasn't, fiery, restless, and isolated, while Peck became the industry's symbol of integrity. Douglas earned another nickname, the Old Wolf, still hungry for recognition. When Columbia Pictures offered them The Heroes of Telemark in 1960, Peck refused fast. "I don't want to share the screen with a man who acts only with his chin and shouting," he said. Douglas exploded when he heard that, calling Peck the hypocrite with the golden halo and mocking him as a saint painted by publicists. From there, any chance of peace was gone. They became the two poles of old Hollywood, intellect versus instinct, discipline versus fire, silence versus noise. Their feud lasted decades, stretching across awards, careers, and old age. In the 80s, when asked who the last true star of the golden era was, Douglas smirked, "Gregory Peck may be a star, but I'm a man, and I'd rather be real than a statue built on lies." Peck never clapped back. He simply smiled and kept his stillness. To friends, he once said, "Some people spend their whole lives proving they're not beneath anyone, and forget that no one's watching anymore." Time eventually softened them. In 2001, after Douglas suffered a stroke, a reporter asked him about Peck. Tears filled his eyes as he said, "Greg was the man I resented, envied, and in the end, wished I could be." When Peck heard of Douglas's condition, he answered gently, "I don't hate him anymore. I just wish we had understood each other." Their story became more than rivalry. It became the quiet tragedy of two men fighting for meaning in a place built on illusion. Peck believed truth lived in restraint, while Douglas believed truth had to be shouted in the end. Neither man was remembered for winning. They were remembered for how deeply their lives mirrored each other, two souls burning in the same merciless light. Because Hollywood, beneath all that gold shine, isn't a dream factory at all. It's a stage wired with illusion. Behind the shimmer, everything is manufactured, faith rehearsed, smiles edited, emotions trimmed to fit the schedule. Passion gets marketed, pain gets polished, and even love gets filtered until it's pretty enough to sell. Fame turns into currency, bodies into tools, and loneliness into a debt no one collects. Every frame is calculated, every tear measured, every kiss lit by someone holding a stopwatch. The same light that should reveal the soul ends up blinding it, selling beauty while draining the spirit that created it. Behind those velvet curtains sit the ghosts of people who once believed the spotlight could save them, but it never saved anyone. That light wasn't redemption, it was fire. In that fire, the weak burned quietly, while the strong learned to smile through the smoke. Because even suffering has to look beautiful in Hollywood. They still call it the American dream. But if you stand there long enough, past the applause, past the cameras, you'll hear something else, something small, wounded, and painfully real. The sigh of those who thought the light belonged to them, only to realize it never did. Like, share, and subscribe to Secret America channel.